Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Fox Den again. We are still Mama D-less. But she's trying. She's trying to get back to us. I just want to say before we start the show, I want to remind everybody that Penhurst Paracon is right around the corner. I keep trying to update these pictures of all the celebrity guests, and I'm going to read a list that's in front of me so it doesn't go along with all these pictures that are on the screen here. But we have Ghost Hunters and Kindred Spirits and Project Beer and Ghost Brothers and Brian Rochelle that used to be Ghost Hunters, Katrina Wegman, Nick and Tessa Groff. Twin Paranormal is a new one this year. Kristen Bauer from True Blood is a new one this year. Rachel Lafferty, she's from Twilight. Well, she's returning, but we have also Ashley Green from Twilight. So we have two Twilight people this year. We have CJ Graham, who played Jason, Patty Negri, the psychic, Kim Coates. Now he's a very great actor, and I'm sure you've seen him in something. He's been in a million roles. So, well, maybe not a million. All right, I over exaggerate all the time, but a lot. And he was in Sons of Anarchy, and if you remember way back when, the Waterworld. Okay, and Thomas Winterton, he's from Skinwalker Ranch. Kalani, the Ghost Hunter. Sons of Appalachia. The Grim Life Collective. Kelsey Davis and Selena Boo from their streaming people. And then so many things to do, at the event. So these are our Twilights, okay? So Rachel and Ashley. Now, this year also, we're doing this, okay? Because we always have only had our celebrity people, highlighted at the event. This year, we're doing this. We have a new venue. We are offering non-celebrity people a chance to host a 20-minute workshop on both Saturday and Sunday. What you have to do is message me, Gina Bankston, or Bob Christopher. And what you're going to include is your headshot, a bio, what you do or sell pertaining to the paranormal or metaphysical fields. Why should we pick you, okay, to host a 20-minute workshop on Saturday and a 20-minute workshop on Sunday? To be clear, this is a non-paying segment. What you will get is your face on our page and the notoriety that's carried with the honor that goes with that, okay? We are choosing only 10 people, so please, presentation matters, right? And it really does. We've gotten some great people writing about this. So I know you guys are interested and you want to be featured at Penhurst Paracon 26. That's what you got to do. So tonight, and I can get rid of this and add this. Okay, tonight we have Tracy waiting for me patiently in the background. She's fabulous. So we are going to be talking about her book, Life Storms. So I'm going to read her bio and get her on here. And of course, I need my cheaters on. So we have Tracy Doyle. She is a nationally recognized entrepreneur, emotional wellness advocate, and the author of Life Storms, Finding Your Clear Sky. Her journey from childhood shaped by trauma and instability to becoming an award-winning business leader and resilience coach is a testament to the power of reinvention in healing. After building a multi-million-dollar medical communications company and earning regional accolades like Ernst and Young Entrepreneur of the Year Award, Tracy faced a breaking point, emotional burnout. Y'all know about that. Okay. The personal crisis became the catalyst for her transformation and the creation of the AURORA METHOD, a practical psychology-informed, mindfulness-based framework helping people or professional women professional women overcome burnout, reshape limiting beliefs, and reconnect with themselves and others. Tongue twister. Through her book, masterclasses, and 8-week course, Tracy empowers professional women to break free from the patterns keeping them stuck so they can lead their lives with calm, clarity, and confidence, reminding them that no matter how turbulent life feels, clear skies are always within reach. And you can learn more about her at www.tracydoyle.life. And of course, here, now, and in the Fox Den, and we're going to get her on here. Hi, Tracy. Welcome to the Fox Den.
Hey, Gina. It's great to be here.
Oh, my goodness. I got to say, guys, all right, let me get my comments up here, too, because, hi, you can't see my face. Oh, no, yeah, I had pictures up there. That's why. I'm here. Yeah, this book Tracy, okay. When I read that bio, when I first got this about you, okay, when I started reading the book, is not what I expected at the beginning of this book, not at all. And to say that you had a traumatic childhood and life and everything that's not even scratching the surface. I mean, it's like it's so much more than that. And I, man, you had me gripped. I felt for you. I was just like, all of it. So that being said, people, just the beginning part of her book, that could be it. I mean, her life story could be a book. But what she did is she learned from these things. She founded this method. We have so many materials, so many things that can help us, and it's all here. You don't have to buy anything else. You don't have to do anything else. You don't have to any of it. It's fabulous. It's fabulous. And I thank you so much. Profound. Good job.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. It's so good to see that you have the tools. Yes.
Oh, yeah, I printed it all. And what I'm going to do is, because I have to read the books for the show, but I'm going to do it. You know what I mean? So I didn't have time to do it, but I'm definitely going to do it. And
Awesome.
and you reference in here because a lot of us, when we go through these emotional things, right? We're going to get more in depth, but when we go through these emotional things, I have referred to a lot the 12 steps of AA. Okay. And there's references to that in here. The methods are a lot like that, the things that you learn in AA. And I've always said, everybody, AA, NA, GA, all of those, okay? I've always said that those should be a part of everyone's everyday repertoire anyway. Because
you're right, because you read my story, and I had a friend who was in a 12-step program, and she was pivotal. And I was so intrigued to understand all the background, right? Having studied psychology and counseling. And it ultimately led me to the Emmett Fox book, which is Sermon on the Mount. And when I read that book, that's why I say the practices are like what all the great masters teach and what all the great psychologists teach. Because basically when I really looked at that book, and plus the books that I love, like Don Miguel Ruiz's 4 Agreements. I love Susan Jeffers' Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway. I'm a huge fan of M. Scott Peck. Like, this is all going back to my younger years. But what was very profound for me at that time was how consistent everyone's message is, right?
Yeah.
In terms of that framework. And when you see it work, that framework work for people who are struggling deeply with addiction. And then you look at burnout, right? And you see the parallels, because burnout is a similar journey. I mean, it's stress, it's overwhelm. And then what starts to happen is your thinking gets really negative, and you're really feeling like the world is against you. And, and you're like, no one gets me. And, and you start to isolate. But a lot of people, I was in medical communication, so I really look at data. A lot of people, when they start to come down that slope in burnout, they're looking for relief.
Yeah.
Some people will become an alcoholic. They might not cross the line into addiction, but I don't want to say an alcoholic. Heavy drinkers, others will cross that line and become an alcoholic. Others become drug addicts. Others still turn to food. Others, ultimately end up getting mentally ill from it and physically sick. And then ultimately the nth part of it, going all the way down to the bottom, is, becoming depressed and wanting to kill themselves, and that, understanding that, I actually have a slide that looks like this, because it is a peak and a valley. And then you have to climb out of it. And it was so profound to me when my friend shared all this with me and showed me the principles. It was like so astounding how those core spiritual principles apply to life. And you look at all the influences. I studied Carl Jung. He's in there. I studied Abraham. Now it's not quoted in there in terms of
no, it's inferred. It's like, it.
Right, exactly. I mean, having studied psychology, Abraham Maslow is in there, and when I saw that, I was like, wow, and that's why for me, that is such a significant influence that I would never want to not give credit to, because I think, and I do want to share this in my medical communications world. I had the privilege of sitting, I was invited to sit with the Surgeon General when they made addiction a national problem. And one of our clients was there and invited me to go to serve more as a strategic ear and listen to what was happening. And I sat there and I listened to all these experts, and I think you'll appreciate this. And the number one researcher in addiction actually said if the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous was FDA approved, it would be the gold standard for many things.
Yep. I've said this for so many years, like about 25 years plus. I have said this.
Mm-hmm.
So, finally, thank you for, you know what I mean? Like, it's not exactly that, people. Okay. It's not exactly that. It's just
not. It's
kind of based on that. It's just, when you do something wrong to someone, you acknowledge it right away. What was my part in it? What can I do to fix it? All that stuff. And she has every tool to assess yourself, because people do this all the time, but they have a hard time doing this. So this does this. Okay. What was my part in it? How can I fix this? How can I, in an AA and NA, whatever, all those things. It's like, how can I make amends? And then the more you do it, the quicker you are at making those amends. Because the hardest thing in the world to do is what? Say, I'm sorry.
Well,
wrong.
Well, to me, I'm sorry is really where I took it was away from I'm sorry. I wrote in the book, I had the privilege of hearing Oprah Winfrey speak, and I'll never forget this. It was during a time when I was still having relationship conflict, and I was learning how to, really look at myself. I was understanding now that it wasn't my mom that was causing my burnout. It wasn't my job. It wasn't difficult people. It wasn't them. Okay. It wasn't them. It wasn't us, meaning my spouse and difficult people in my life. It was all coming from within me. It was all these beliefs that were shaped by early life experiences. And my friend was pivotal in saying that, our life experiences shape our thinking. And when you understand how it's been shaped, you can reshape it. And I was like, wow, where does this come from? So in any case, I had been now understanding what I call the reaction cascade, if you read about that in the book. And I started to really piece it together because I'm visual. And I'm sitting in this room in Newark, New Jersey, not in a room, but in this stadium. And Oprah says, she opens up by saying, the greatest gift you can give to anyone is acknowledgement. And I thought, wow, I wrote that down, and I was reflecting on that. And I said to myself, you know what? I'm not going to say I'm sorry. I'm going to learn how to acknowledge when I do something that hurts someone. Or if I react in a certain way, I'm going to acknowledge how unfair it was. Or if I recognize that someone's, feeling uncomfortable, I'm not just going to go, are you uncomfortable? I'm going to acknowledge that they seem like something's not right.
Yep.
And that was the hugest shift in relationship dynamics that I ever experienced. And so that's why I created what I call the acknowledgement conversation. Yep. Because and there's so many ways to acknowledge. Yep. And when I started to really frame that, I was like, it does sound a lot like that, because my friend and I would talk all about the importance of taking emotional accountability for yourself.
Yeah.
But
what it is like people have a problem saying that, right?
Yes.
But this takes it that step further.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. It does. It takes it right. It takes it right to when you acknowledge someone, like if you've reacted in a way, or you said something really crass, or you said something like snarky, and you take 5, 10, 7, 8 minutes, however long, to reset that in yourself, and you come back and go, you know what? I realized what I just said was so unfair.
Yep.
And so let's start over. When you look at your spouse, or you look at your family member, whomever you just said that to, all of a sudden they go, wow, you know that you were just a jerk. You know what I mean? But it melts And what once would be mental conflict or mental, I always call it quiet divorce, and you're just divorcing yourself from everybody and isolating, all of a sudden fosters connection again. And that, to me, like, that concept that I read about and my friend and I talked about was so big at the time. But as I learned this as a technique for me, as a communication strategy, if you will,
Yeah.
wow. And that's why I'm sharing it, because it brings people together
Yeah.
rather than staying stuck and living apart.
Yeah. Game changer. Yeah, because that's the thing. It's like, when you have that feeling and you have that, aloneness, and that, oh, I'm the only one that's, experiencing this. I'm the only one that this would ever happen to. Why is it always me? All these things, they just compound and compound and compound, and they just keep you lower and lower and lower. And then you stop believing all these things, and it's lower and lower, and that's just not true. It's not true. You're never alone. There's always someone, that can relate to you, and you have your aha moments when you're reading someone else's story and going, oh my God, that's like when you go into AA. Again, I'm going to keep doing this. All right. But like when you go to an AA meeting or something and you hear people sharing, and it's like, oh my God, that's my story, and it's like you read your story and it's like, yeah, there are parts of it, that are like similar to my story. And when you do it, you can't not. All right. Start thinking about your past and the things that happened to you, and such, and it's
You
like,
know, yeah,
how did it shape you? What did it do?
exactly. But the thing that I found, Gina, that, because like once I started, like, honestly managing my burnout and coming out of it, it was like a 10-year journey for me to really recover from burnout. I started mentoring other professional women because, people were noticing I was handling things different, especially in my CEO role. Because I mean, I was a wreck. I mean, I would just freak out, from the stress, and I didn't know how to handle it.
Yeah.
And people would be what are you doing? Right. So, I shared. At the time, I wasn't calling it the AURORA method. It was just, I pieced together a framework of how to change because I was really struggling for so many years. I'd been to therapy. I had executive coaches. I read self-help books. I mean, I was vulnerable with a friend. She actually showed me, how to apply certain pieces of the steps. I mean, it was just like so much, right? And so I said, look, I didn't know how to change either, and this is what I've done. I started helping people, and this was just mentoring, right?
Yeah.
What I'm astounded by, and I call this the universal truth, is, and you read my story and you saw how crazy, and not crazy is not the right word, how traumatic it was, and how some of these
And
experiences,
it's like trauma on steroids.
yes.
It's traumatic.
It's not all in there. If you read the first version, people actually said this could not be true. And my beta readers, they were like, it's too much. So I condensed it. But
Wow.
so I gave all the highlights.
Wow.
But anyway, but no, but what I found as you start to overcome burnout is you want to start to, like, compare, right? Trauma compare, like, oh, my life wasn't as bad as yours, so I'm not as bad as you. But here's what I found. I mentored women, like, we're talking high level execs in the pharmaceutical industry, doctors, healthcare executives, healthcare managers and leaders. And inevitably, although they didn't have my life, right? Like, not even a fraction, it would be things like a critical parent. It would be being bullied at school. One woman was made fun of because she had a beautiful smile, but her teeth were a little bit bigger than her face, right? At the time as a child. And what they carried was the same two foundational limiting beliefs, which is, I'm not good enough. I always go right here to the third eye. I'm not good enough, and I'm not worthy. And it
Yeah.
just sits in the center of our mind. But what I found astounding is that if we're all wounded, right? And we often have this tendency to think, and I know I did, I thought, like, my burnout or my reactions or my frustrations, as we said before, was them or us, right? Then I started to see, wait, no, like, we each have our own trigger, right? And so my friends used to talk to me about the concept of resentment. And she said, resentment comes from the French word ressentir, which means to re-feel deeply. So what are you refeeling? I mean, it was like therapy. And I'm like, what am I refeeling? Like, I have no idea what I'm refeeling, right? But then as I started to look at the tool, I started to see patterns with my answers. And then I realized that, and I always put it out here, that anytime I refeel it, so, someone says something, someone looks at me the wrong way, I feel like I'm being judged, whatever, that one, if it came from a wound, and I had many, and my spidey senses went up, what I realized was there was an initial belief that was created from that wound. So, for example, my favorite story is the nanny story, where she called me a bastard. She made me sit on the floor,
Yep.
and I couldn't understand why I didn't belong. I was like, I thought I belonged, and then all of a sudden I didn't belong, because I was, obviously my mom had me as a teenager, and she wasn't married, and but that belief of any time I felt like I was being rejected would trigger, oh no, I don't belong, right? And then I'm not good enough. And then where does it go next? And this is the thing I learned. I love Tony Robbins' work about fear. So I go to my feet, lost, less, or never. So I'm afraid of losing what I have, never getting what I want, or feeling less than, or getting less than. When I could see how that fear now brings me up, I call this the city of limitation, starts the storm inside my mind, right?
Yep.
I take it to two places. If you look at the work in the 12 steps, it says, where were you selfish, right?
Yep.
Okay. I don't know a single person, especially a burned out person, who's going to sit there and say, how dare you call me selfish? I do everything for everyone. Are you kidding me?
Right.
But with my psych background, selfishness means nothing more than being absorbed, right, inside. But when you name the ish, right, the thing that you're absorbed by, pity. Some people are consumed with being right all the time. Others like me, I had, I was sexually abused on top of all these things.
Yeah.
And the self-centered trait is self-effacing and self-avoidance. I would hide. So when the pressure got up, I just left. I would leave and not talk to you for months, years, right? Self-effacing is I lost my voice. I wanted to be invisible. I didn't want anyone to see me. So I had a really hard time, like accepting even recognition, like in my earlier life. I couldn't deal with it, but it ultimately affected me later. But then the survival skills, like self-reliance that I developed, again, I was absorbed with, I have to do everything myself, because I did as a child. It worked for me to get out of my poverty. But now as a CEO, it didn't work, because, here I am, like chief cook and bottle washer, and I have a whole team. But what message was I sending?
Looking at you for all the answers, and you're like,
what message was I sending? I'm sending, I don't need you. And now I'm triggering your wound, that you don't think you're good enough, right? So when I started to really understand that dynamic, I was like, wow, this burnout is so real. But I started to realize that, especially now with the data, 40 to 60% of women, it doesn't say, that doesn't mean men, but I'm speaking specific to women right now. 40 to 60% of women, so almost 1 in 2 women today, are reporting burnout in the workplace.
I think it's going to take on too much. You know what I mean? Like, it's like we feel still, which is so stupid, that we still have to prove something more.
Well, it's almost like invisible labor, right? Like we come into it thinking that we got to take care of the house, we got to take care of the kids, we got to take care of our spouse, we got, so I was that same woman who managed it all. We got to do this, we got to do that. But then on top of it, when we have those beliefs of, if I don't perform, or if I'm not perfect, I'm not good enough, or I'm not worthy, we're driven. And for me, my belief was, if I achieve and I do well in school, I'll get out. Right. So that belief drove me to my near death. That's how I look at that. Because it was go, do. And it was so intense that I didn't even like I lost myself and I lost connection with myself. And I didn't even recognize that I was losing all of that.
Yeah. I've been there, done, because, I'm married a couple times. We get married again, right? But my husband that passed, we had businesses together. I've always been my own boss. I've always had my own business since I was a teenager, but that stress, like I had two businesses, and my late husband, he had one, and I'm running like a chicken all the time, and I'm doing the book work for everything. And I'm going out, because I had a cleaning business. I had an interior design decorating business.
Wow.
And then he had a construction company, and I did construction. You know what I mean? Wow. So like, I'm doing all these things. Like I would I would design your kitchen, pick everything out, on the nice clothes, go in there, do the designer thing. But then I'm coming back with my bandana on and my toolbox, and I'm ripping out your cabinets, and I'm ripping up your floors, and then I'm putting them in, So it's like, I'm not only just designing, I'm doing, and then I'm doing all the book work and still taking care of the house and this and that. And then he passed away, and it was like, oof. So, like I would design, he would rough build, I would go in and finish it, and then the cleaning company would come in and clean it up. It was all poof, done.
Wow. Wow.
It was a lot. And yeah, talk about burnout. I would just get like a tax time now. And I thought I was done with it. I retired. I'm done with it. Now I'm getting married, and now I'm in it again. I'm just like, oof.
Well, you're speaking to the fear of, like, for me in business, I didn't realize it, but I was driven by loss, fear of losing my mind, like fear of losing the business, fear of losing the money or the earnings that we were making. And, and because I felt this incredible sense of responsibility, for the team, but then unpack that. I grew up believing that I had to sacrifice myself for everybody, right? For my family, for my job, for my relationship, right? For my business. And, and here, and if I was, gosh, if we lost a client and I had to lay people off, I thought I was a failure because I'm sacrificing everything for them. And, and so basically that to me, that specific fear, because I grew up in scarcity, it was like a driver. I mean, and that one still affects me, to your point. I mean, like I was just looking at taxes the other day, and I was like, oh,
I know, I hate it. I get so I have paper.
My throat closes. I'm like, oh my God.
Like how you made your sheets and everything. Like I have all my stuff, and I designed all my own stuff.
Yeah, that's me.
Excel sheets and everything for everything, and all my calculation, my checkbook, everything I've done. All like I could probably sell that.
Yeah, you probably could.
I made, they're amazing, but it's like line by line by line going through all this stuff. When I thought I was done with it, and now he's dragged me back into it.
Yeah, I get it. And then, but then you're like, oh my gosh, we have to pay that. Where are we going to get that money? What's going to happen? And that whole cascade, I call it the reaction cascade. That whole, city of limitations starts to, and what I mean by that is you're stuck in your head and you're stuck in those negative thoughts. And, and I was just hearing a statistic, like the average person has thousands and thousands of thoughts, right? Yep. And I think 80% of them are negative. So.
Yep. It's so true. And women more so. I really, really, I feel like men just don't care. They're either going to, it's like whatever, something falls and it's like, okay, and they walk away, they won't go and pick it up, or they see it on the floor for 20 days or so, like you leave it there, like, am I going to pick that up? No. Would it drive me crazy? Yes. And why is that? I don't know. Mom brain, woman thing, because we use both sides of our brain. I don't know what it is, but it's like the responsibility of like the whole entire world comes onto our shoulders.
Mm-hmm. It's the invisible labor. That's what I call it,
But I do love how you do, like, so you go right from one, from your story to, the solutions. I love it. It's just like a perfect break in the book to where everything comes to play. But I did want to pull out one thing too, when, and I'm reading all this stuff and I can't wait to do it, but I'm reading all this stuff and then we get to jade.
Mm-hmm. Jade. I even wear a jade bracelet.
Do you? Because jade is like one of my, I have a nice little pendulum. That's jade. That's my favorite. I love jade. But jading here means something completely different.
Mm-hmm.
And jade would stand for justify, argue, defend, and explain. And can you just explain that a little bit too? Because I think this is so important. I mean, it's like just such a pivotal point. It was like right at the time that it should be as you're reading the book, as you're going through this stuff, because I'm picturing myself, writing these things out. I'm already calculating in my mind because, like, my mind, I always say, is a filing cabinet.
Yeah.
The drawers are always open, so I'm already doing these sheets, but yet I have to prepare for a show to be with you.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah. So jade is a concept about communication, right? But for the audience, I just want to back up a little. So the Aurora method is just really all about, it's 8 practices, and what it's about is it's the fundamental idea that our life experiences shape our thinking. And if we agree that we're all wounded, and whenever we re-feel a wound and it triggers an old belief that you had, now mind you, it is in your unconscious mind, you're not aware of it. You then go into what I call the city of limitation, which is the reaction cascade. And all the city of limitation means is, think about a city of limitation. You can't see out because you can't get out. You often feel stuck. And then people can't get in. And so what happens is think about how you feel in relationships. You feel distant. You feel like you're not connected. You feel, some people want to mentally divorce, like I said, their spouse, or or they just want to walk away from family, So what starts to happen there is that the Aurora method is the first practice in it is all about self-assessment. So when you're looking back, all you're doing is looking at what's bubbling up quickly. And when you look at what's bubbling up quickly, those are the old unconscious wounds, right? So it's not like I've had some people read the book, Gina, and they're like, oh my God, like, you want me to go back in my life and ask that question? And, I'm not spending hours doing it. It's like, no, I did it. I do Aurora Method Academy and I teach people. People went through the first 3 columns last night in 30 minutes. That's how quick it is, right? But people make this big thing out of it. But anyway, so the idea here is when we can see who are we angry with, who hurt us, what did they do, how did it affect us? So Abraham Maslow talks about, in his hierarchy of needs, there's main ones: belonging, esteem, our aspirations, which he calls self-actualization, and your ambitions and what you can do for yourself. He also talks about, safety, right? So, physical safety and financial security. And he also talks about emotional safety and emotional security. And the premise here is that Maslow, and he's an old psychologist, but what he said was, anytime we have some type of wound that we've internalized and it stunts one of our needs, we start to see the world negatively because we're coming from a place of lack. So think of what lack is, right? If you read the book, looking at life through a straw, you're just laser focused on what you don't have, and you're not able to see the abundance of what you do have. And then you're living in a state of discontent, right? I'm unhappy. This, life is horrible. You're horrible. They're horrible. You think about how it is. So what the Aurora method then does is it asks you to really look at how you responded. So it's not a shaming exercise. It helps you start to really see your patterns, right? So once you see your patterns, you then name your traits. So I call them the issues. But there's other traits too, right? There's fear, there's thoughtlessness, where we're unthinking, right? We just do something out of spite. Think about it. Many times we're dishonest. I was dishonest. I was sexually abused, and I was terrified of talking about it. So if you didn't ask, I wasn't saying anything, but that trait followed me. So there's various traits. So the next piece of it is then once you understand it, you see it, you name it, you now know how to change it. You go through the next phase of it, which is called the turnaround, and you're learning how to shift your perspective. Because what's the number one treatment for burnout? If you ever read the data, every piece of literature I've read is change your outlook and change your attitude, change your perspective. And everyone I know is like, how do I do that? So the turnaround helps you do that. Now, once you start to turn around, you start to see things like, oh my gosh, like I thought it was, gosh, I thought it was my mother who was doing this, or I thought that, oh my gosh, it's not it.
Yep.
Then you go to the conversation, the acknowledgement conversation. And what Jade is about is we have the tendency, as we're trying to have a conversation about something, is we want to over explain it. Well, I did this because you did that, right? When you do this, I do that. Or we defend it, right? Or so let's start with the J. We justify why we did it. I did this because, right? Or we argue with each other. Well, oh, really? Well, it's a tit for tat.
Yep.
And we defend ourselves, like I said, or we over explain. So jading is all about paying attention to how that creates disconnect. And it does not foster acknowledgement. It does not foster connection. And when I think about the state of where we are right now outside of burnout, so many people are at odds because they're stuck with certain traits and they're jading. And in the absence of those two things, I can tell you, when you learn how to change those traits and you learn how to stop jading, gosh, your world opens up. And I'm just going to share one story about that. I was working on the book, and his name is John. So I love him. He's a great guy. And he's a development editor, and he was helping me figure out how to reframe the self-help portion of the book. And and I was struggling, like, you got to name it, you got to this, and because I just want to tell you what I learned, So anyway, he started doing the work, and I don't know, it was about a couple months into us working together, and he said to me, this book's really messing me up, and now I'm like, oh my God, what do you mean? And he said, no, in a good way.
Right.
And he told me a story of how he and his brother they were so close. And he and I had a similar background. He grew up in an alcoholic family. He did not have a substance problem. But he and his brother were at odds over something. And he realized that he wasn't taking his brother's perspective into account based on his brother's job. And he jumped to a conclusion, and he became self-righteous. And he actually cut ties with his brother, who was his lifeblood and his best friend. And his brother, was devastated, but never did anything about it. And so he actually called his brother and said, I've been really thinking about how I, completely cut you off. And it was using expletives, obviously. And he said, and I've been really thinking about our relationship, and I realized I didn't respect this, this, and this. And I was only looking at it from my own perspective, and I can understand now what you were trying to say. And it was so unfair of me to just cut you off, man, because I love you and you're my brother and blah, blah, blah. And now they're back together. That is what the AURORA method brings, because he first did the self-assessment, then he did the turnaround, and then he got to creating the connection builder. And when he did that, he was like, you know what? I want my brother back in my life. I don't want to live like this anymore. And then my favorite, though, is he realized something about him and his wife. And we had a very, very great conversation about that. So the AURORA method, I speak to women because I've mentored professional women for a long time, but this is applicable to everybody. And, and all it's about is helping you break through the patterns that keep you stuck and really move from feeling disconnected to reconnected, not only to yourself, but to the other people in your life that matter, so that you find your fulfillment again.
Right. Right. That's a great story. And that's so true. And again, we keep saying like AA and addictions and things like that. Now, it doesn't have to be a substance. It's just, in general, addictive personalities, because it's just, people can be addicted to ice cream. All right. And it's like, if you have an addictive personality, whatever it is, you'll obsess about it. You just want it. And it's just, but this whole thing goes with this addictive personality that, that this whole 12-step thing, your book mentally focuses on. And you know what I mean? Like, it's what works to snap you out of it, because it's like this. It's you do get stuck in yourself. You do get stuck here.
We all do. because we're all wounded, right? And I try to stay away, me personally, I stay away from labeling things, because what I learned as I was mentoring women, and they didn't have experiences like I did with addiction. They grew up in, like, I remember the one gal, the one who, had a beautiful smile. She grew up in a super successful family, and, but yet she felt so, she was taunted so much at school that she just went inward, and, and just carried this with her. And it really was a detriment to her at work. And then she ultimately started to pull away from her family because she didn't feel supported, but they didn't know how to support her because she wasn't telling them, right? So, so what happened was it brought her into that's why I call it the city of limitation. Self-centered fear and self-centered thinking, in my experience, having done this, is what really fuels us and drives us. And then I think about all the other books I read, and that's why I take it always back to Emmett Fox and then my favorite authors, they're all saying the same thing, right? In different ways. They're all telling us the same message, that we're stuck, right? And so find what's keeping you stuck, learn how to shift it. And when you shift it and release it, man, life opens up.
Yeah. I've got a bunch of books over here on various subjects along the same thing, but I have got to say, they'll be like, you have to buy this, or you have to take that course, or you have to do this. Now, you do offer courses and you do have these things, but you have a free webinar that you give people. You have all these papers, and there's a lot of them, people. There's a lot of them. All right. This is your self-assessment sheets. And, it just goes on and 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 on. You have everything. It's all free. Right?
It is.
It's all here. Everything you need. Everything
you need. And it's free because I wanted to create a do-it-yourself approach for people.
It's actually do it yourself.
Because I didn't know how to do it. And so once I learned how to do it, I wanted to be a guide for people, because my burnout took me to wanting to die. And I want to prevent people from feeling so isolated and alone and stuck in struggle, especially if they're struggling in relationship conflict, because that's a signal for burnout, for emotional burnout. But the reason I'm offering the free webinar is to help people understand that city of limitation and how it keeps you stuck. And then the Aurora Method Academy is nothing more than, if you feel like you can't do it alone and you need accountability. So, and by the way, I've extended it from 8 to 12, because what I found was, as we were doing it, people did not want homework because they were overwhelmed. So now I've made it a 12-week course, and it's 90 minutes. That's your container. You give yourself permission for those 90 minutes. And then basically what we do is we do the exercises together, so you can get it done and you can get your insights and you know how to go forward. And the book continues to support you, right?
Keep doing it and keep doing it and keep doing it, like forever. Because that's the thing too with the steps. It's like you just recognize things a lot sooner. You notice yourself going into those same old patterns, the same old rabbit hole, and you will be able to stop. Wait a minute, I gotta do
exactly. And and that's the thing I forgot to mention was, after I talked about the turnaround, you build your own life storm navigator. And what does that mean? When you look at, again, the data on burnout says change your perspective. Everyone says how, right? Like I said, and what they talk about is mindset shifts, and how do you shift your mindset? So for me personally, I read so many books, and I had so many different affirmations and so many different things. And I found I would put them up on my computer, on my mirror, on my cork board, wherever I was, but I didn't use them. And what I found was, when I could name the traits that were keeping me stuck, I could release those traits, which for me, self-reliance was a big one, right? I wouldn't let it, I believed no one should help me because I grew up having to survive, right? So I had to say, I'm releasing self-reliance, and I'm open and receptive to asking for and receiving help. And then I affirm I am receiving help, right? And that's how change started, right? And so everyone has their own traits. So this is a personalized mindfulness program. and it's designed to help you build your own personalized mindfulness program so that when you're in the midst of and what a life storm is it's that churn when you're edgy and you're frustrated and you're irritated. When you're in the middle of a churn, you know what to do. And if by chance you happen to, some people with burnout are exploders. I'm an exploder. Others are imploders. They go in and they swallow it and get all mad and, affects their health. Either way, you can reset yourself and get yourself back to centeredness and calmness. And that's what it's about.
Yeah. And I'm telling you, it came in my life at a very perfect time, because this is like the busiest year I've had in forever. And, I'm like managing all these things, that big event's coming up. I'm getting married this year, and we're getting married there, at Penhurst this year. I have 2 other events going on this year as well. Plus, the honeymoon that goes right from the event. And
going anywhere fun?
Just the Outer Banks. And, yeah, it's fun. It's fun. He wants to fish, and, my girlfriend's coming too. So we have spend time together too, So it's going to be great. But it's so much planning and so much stuff. And I'm doing all the things, it's like I made all my invitations. Quick story, totally off the beaten path here, but I have 100 invitations I'm going to send out, right? They're all pretty. Right? I'm a designer. I'm a decorator. I'm an artist. I'm like, I painted screens like those behind you for a client at one time. So I keep looking at that going, that I totally forgot about it until I saw those, I'm like, oh my God, I remember doing that now. But I'm in the post office. I'm going to mail these things out. First of all, I went on the day that President's Day is closed, and I got to lug everything back home again, so then I'm going back out. But I designed the invitations. I printed the invitations. I put the vellum. I put ribbons, and I put wax stamps, and you have the things, and I'm making it all pretty, and the pretty stamps and everything. And I get in there and goes, you need 20 cents more because of the stupid rubber thing that I put into the wax. You're kidding me, right? No. So there's no 20-cent stamp. I have to buy a 29-cent stamp, right? And it's an ugly yellow bus. So it's either that or buy another pretty flower stamp at full price. And I'm like, for 100, I'm like, nah, I'm going to put the yellow bus on. I'm going to tell everybody what happened. So here I am putting 100 stamps on, people are behind me. I'm like, just go. I'm going to be over here putting stamps on. And then he's like, well, I don't want to put it through the machine. I don't want to wreck it. He goes, maybe I'll just self-cancel all the things with the stamp. And I said, well, do you want me to help you? Because this is me. You know what I mean? Here we go. And I think you're just like me. What, do you want me to help you do that? Because, so now here I am, I'm stamping. On top of that, I'm sweating. Now I had the coat on. I had to take the coat off, tie it around my waist. I'm like stamping all the things now to put them over the ugly ass little bus on the thing. Right now. I'm just like, all right. And then an old man comes over. He's going to help me. He's like, oh, what are these for? I'm like, this is for my wedding. And he's like, oh, I've been married for 67 years. And this whole conversation starts. And now everybody in the place is laughing, and we're, and I'm stamping, and he's stamping away. And we finally get it done. I'm just like, God, could just the one thing is so, involving and taxing, and I'm doing all the decorations because, that's my line of work anyway. And my daughter is just as good as, if not better than I am now. She's taking the reins and running. So she's going to be coming down and helping, doing all the stuff. But my dining room, huge dining room, is nothing but flowers, wedding decorations, this, that, and the other thing. This wedding is not until September, and I've already got my arches up and the macrame and the this and the, it's all pretty, it's all very pretty.
Yeah, that sounds beautiful.
So yeah, I'm like, all right, I got to do it. Actually, you know what? I even have a picture on here. I put a picture on here. So like, yeah.
Oh,
so
wow, that looks great.
So this is, and it's got better since then, you know what I mean? So it's like, yeah, but I just keep doing these things. So, but now after I got it done on that side of the dining room, I wanted to move it to the other side of the dining room. And of course, I'm not tall enough to carry it from the center. So I'm like, inch, all the way back, 26 feet to the other end of the freaking room, around the table and the chairs. Like, oh God. I'm the only one that can do this, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, that's the belief, right?
Yeah.
Only I can do it, and it's got to be perfect.
Yeah. No.
And if it's not, it's a crisis. I know for me, I had to work through a lot of that. If it didn't go because I'm meticulous about everything.
Yes.
And if it wasn't like 100% perfect, it was a catastrophe for me.
I know.
And I had to learn how to
My
reset
beautiful
that.
invitations are ruined.
Yep, exactly. And you don't
Yeah.
have to though. You don't have, when you
No.
learn how to let that stuff go, it's pretty incredible,
Yeah.
especially for just, just our well-being. That's why I'm doing emotional wellness advocacy, because it's like, we just like I've just come to believe that we're just human doers. At least I was,
Right.
just doing, and I just never gave myself a chance to just be, And I work on being a human being today.
I know, and I love reading this. I really do, because it was such a good time, because it really did bring me back. I did suffer from addiction, and from alcohol and cocaine and other
Okay.
drugs and
Okay.
stuff. So I did suffer from that. I did lose everything. I did want to kill myself. I did go through all these things. I can
Mhm.
relate. I was abused at 4 years old. I was like, a lot of things I can relate to. You know what I mean?
Wow.
But
Mhm.
so but these things shaped me. I didn't go down that, killer hole because of so many things. I went down that killer hole because of drugs mainly,
Mhm.
but AA did save my life, and that was a total lifesaver. And when I learned those steps, I was like, oh, wow,
Mhm.
you
Mhm.
know, huh,
Mhm.
this should be for everyone,
Well,
and
the wisdom that comes, like the wisdom my friend had, I mean, like unparalleled wisdom that I've ever experienced from anyone in my friend circle. Her wisdom was amazing, you know? And
yeah,
so, I mean, that's to me, the wisdom that you gain is incredible. And to be able to share it and help others in and out of those rooms is incredible. And that's what she gave me, you know?
it's, oh my God, it's powerful. And then because, at the time, I'm like, in construction and everything, right? So I'm like, I felt more comfortable with men,
Mhm.
I said I
Mhm.
should have born a man, you know what I
Mhm.
mean? I was comfortable with men. I would go to a man's meeting, and they actually allowed me in there because, even though I was a cute girl, they accepted me because of who, and, how hard I was working, how much I wanted this, and how,
Mhm.
you know what I mean? I want to know, I want to have what you have, but you could feel the energy in this room. This group of men it was insane. The energy in this room. I swear the beams from heaven were shining on this. I really do,
That's
you know,
amazing.
and if it wasn't for them, I wouldn't have made it. And then I could be there for women, you know,
Mhm.
know what
Mhm.
I'm
Mhm.
and and then to keep them away from the bad men, and
Mhm. Yeah, yeah.
there's always the good and the bad and the stuff like that, and that was so many years ago, and those things, like, I don't go to meetings anymore. I don't really need to. I really did work those steps hard. I really did apply those principles, the things that I learned through my life. However, again, this is a much better method, a much better refresher course, and a reminder of, so if
What it
somebody,
teaches, of what it teaches.
yes,
Yeah, yeah.
know,
That's what it's about. I mean, like I said, the fundamental framework is, I think, when you look at, again, because I studied psychology and counseling, the fundamental framework is in so many places. And for me personally, I needed practical. I just needed practical, hands-on, show me how.
yep,
And I was able to translate it in a way that like anyone can do it, and that's pretty much because I could do it. That's how I looked at it. And
yeah.
now I'm teaching it, and I want to teach it because it's beautiful. And and like
It's
the
life-saving and life-changing. It's
it's
not
life changing.
life-changing.
When you learn how to change your thinking, it's incredible to me. I didn't understand, I had gone, like I said, I'd gone to therapy, and I understood why things were happening. Where I struggled was when, like I would have, reactions, and these reactions were coming from triggers. And, we would talk about the trigger, we would talk about what was driving the trigger. That's great. I knew, like, I could jade that, right? This is why I reacted because my mother did this.
Yeah.
But that didn't foster connection.
Mm.
And so then, to me, it's like when you finally recognize that, and I call it the city of limitation. But when you finally recognize how your life experiences shaped you, and you can empower yourself to reshape that, just by taking the time to understand it. It's not about just jading it and explaining it and justifying and arguing and defending it. It's about going, wow, I need to be accountable to me. And if I'm accountable to me, I can change the dynamic of every relationship that I touch. And that's been my experience. And that's why I wanted to bring this out to the world, because so many people are struggling. And I was fortunate and blessed to be shown this, right? And it like just really, really, in my mind, it saved my life, because I would have kept feeling alone and isolated, and like I had to have the weight of the world on my shoulders, and I had to do everything, because I was, and I still am, the perpetual caretaker, because I have a family who has mental illness.
Mhm.
And I was blessed. I don't have that. And I don't take meds. Yes, I had to be treated at that time for depression. I was treated for my trauma, that I endured from those experiences. But without me, my mentally ill relatives, like, they would be homeless. So I
Yeah.
have to manage money, and I have to, and I have to manage things.
Yep.
But I felt so alone in that. And I realized, when I put the straw down, I realized, no, like I had so many amazing friends. I had so many amazing people in my life, my partner, I mean, everybody. And I wouldn't let them in, because
Right.
I didn't want to burden anyone, right? And that's an old belief,
Yep.
and it was like, oh my gosh, like, look what this did. It kept me so apart. And so when my one friend, when I finally, I had to first come to terms with vulnerability is not weakness. Because I was all that on the outside, right? I'm Tracy CEO, and I'm successful, and I'm a high performer, and I'm this and I'm that. I have the house, I have the car, I've traveled, I got out of poverty. Look at me, right? But when I realized I was protecting myself, from others, and not because I didn't want anyone to know my background, especially when I was in the pharmaceutical industry. Like, I was like horrified. Like, I didn't want them to know, like, where I grew up, and, that I found my stepfather murdered. I mean, like, these were crazy things, and I did not like, I was a one-way mirror, and it worked for a long time until it didn't. And that one-way mirror is what took me to the depths of despair, because I wouldn't let anyone help me. And then when I finally opened up to my friend, I love, like Susan Jeffers' book, Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway. Like, so it all started where, as we know my story, right? Well, this audience doesn't know my story, but
You got to know the story. I'm telling
yeah,
you. Oh my
yeah.
God.
Well, what happened was I got to that point of
It's like
breaking.
VC Andrews or whatever it is. Is it VC Andrews? VC, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Could
But I
be
got to that point, that breaking point, and what it was like, leading up to it, I would be driving, I was exhausted, I was so depleted, I felt so empty, I felt so alone. And all I would think about was, how could I kill myself? Right. And
yeah.
and what started to come to me was, I didn't have the courage to, like, hurt myself in a deliberate way. So I came to terms with, an accident makes really good sense.
I was
So
going to do that too one
it made a
time.
lot of good
Drive the
sense.
car into a tree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then that day, I'll never forget that day. It was December 21st. It was 1999. I'm getting ready for work. I get a glimpse of myself in the mirror. Like, eyes are hollow, my spirit's dim. I mean, I didn't recognize myself anymore, because I was just so empty. And, like, inside my head, like, I'm like, I'm done, and I'm ranting, like, I'm done taking care of my mentally ill mom. I'm done being responsible for my sister's kids. And now at this point, I'm a senior director. I wasn't a business owner yet. And I'm like, I'm done being stretched in every single direction. And, my mind's escalating, right? I'm done being the fixer for everybody, and, then I get to, like, I'm done fighting with everyone, because I felt like no one understood me. And then I'm like, yeah, it's around the holidays. This is it, right? And so I was like, yeah, if I got good and drunk, maybe I would crash the car. And if I crashed the car, no one would know. And so that's how it started. And I woke up that night to someone knocking on my car window because I went through with it. And I'm hearing, "Are you okay? Are you okay?" And I'm jolted awake. And now I'm like, what have I done? Right? What have I done? And my car is facing oncoming traffic. I was a hair away from a head-on collision. And and when I was like, it's a young couple. I could have killed two people. What am I doing? I mean, I flipped out. I'm like, how did I get so lost? Like, what? Like, how do I get my life back? I'm like, I was freaking out. Um, I'm sobbing in the back of the police car, and I'm just like, my mother, I have to take care of my mother. I'm like just going on and on and on. My sister, her kids, you have no idea. Like, and and they're just like, yeah. They think this is just some
Yeah, they
drunk.
think you're a nut job, and
Yeah,
yeah,
they think I'm just this drunk lady. But that was my suicide attempt. And that next day, I had custody of my sister's kids, and I had to go to a school meeting. And of course, I have no car. So I'm walking. I'm walking 2 miles to a school. I'm sobbing hysterically, and I'm just like, my head and my heart, are fighting. Because, like I said, I grew up believing I had to sacrifice myself for everyone. And now I'm like, Tracy, you could have killed two people. I'm screaming. And then my heart's going, Tracy, you're still here. You're still here. And then I'm like, yeah, I literally raised my arms and I'm sobbing. And I'm like, I want to live. I want to live, And then that moment, though, as I'm walking and I'm crying, it what it taught me was, and it was my first real life lesson, was that sacrificing yourself doesn't mean abandoning yourself, right? So for people with burnout, that's what we do. We sacrifice ourselves. It's about putting ourselves first while we're managing it all. And for me at that time, I needed help. I had to go and deal with my trauma. Like I had so much I had to do. I dealt with stuff. I dealt with my sexual abuse as a child, as a teen. I never dealt with my stepfather's death. I never talked about it. And and I never talked about the pressures of managing my mom and what that meant. Like I just internalized all of it. And so, and of course, because I was suicidal, they put me on antidepressants because I was depressed.
and then
But,
times.
right. But I didn't stay on it. I was on it. And, but basically, then I'm reading all these self-help books, and, what ultimately happens is like over a course of, I mean, it felt like 10 years is when I realized, it wasn't anyone breaking me. It was me breaking me. But I was reading Don Miguel Ruiz again, and I was reading Susan Jeffers again. And Don Miguel Ruiz says, it's fear that drives negative behavior. So I'm like, that's it. Like it's fear that's doing this to me. But then I'm like, I need tools for fear. What does that look like? Right. And that's, then I read Jeffers again, right? I had read her book. I pick it back up again. And she's like, you have to be vulnerable. You have to talk to people about what you're going through. You feel your fear and do it anyway, So that's when I talked to my friend. And I had no idea. I had no idea of what she was doing. And, she was in the industry, and I trusted her, and she just showed me the way, right? She just showed me how, because I was like in the process of, like, Don Miguel Ruiz talks about mitote, which is like you have a fog and you're shrouded and you can't see out. And, so I'm telling her all these things. She's like, yeah, the problem is you're self-centered. And I'm like, what? Like, I'm like, how dare you? But then she showed me the self-assessment.
Yep.
And that's when my mind blew apart. And I realized, everything that I had read was really guiding me. I just couldn't see it until she showed me. So it was amazing. Yeah.
Right. And oh my God, it is. It's so. I'm listening to you and all these racing moments, and I just keep going back in time and back in time, back in time, and I still will do it. All these me. I have to do, and
Yeah, well, when we recognize how our wounds, trigger us, because I won't ever forget this conversation. My friend and I, we'd have these really deep, like very philosophical conversations. She was very well read. She read so many different things, and she would say, like, is it possible? is it possible that it's not them? And I'm like, what? Like, it's all that, right? No, could it be you? And I'm like, no,
I
and
know.
then,
You're not the one that did this to you, and I did, I
no,
didn't do
and then
anything to
she
deserve
showed
that.
me
And, right.
then she showed me how to recognize my thinking patterns. And, and it was more, I wouldn't say as refined as I have, uh, over the years, I have really refined what this is. It was very, if you will, like, it was rough, like understanding it. But I studied it and I studied it and I studied it and I wanted to understand it more, and I wanted to change, and I wanted to keep what I had in terms of that change. You know what I mean? And I don't want that thinking to ever drive people away from me again. And so that's why it's so important. And I think for people struggling with burnout who feel so alone and so isolated, once you find your way back to yourself and to other people, you don't ever want to lose that. And that's why it's a daily practice. So,
Yeah.
we can continue. And everyone stops. I mean, come on, weight loss programs, whatever, smoking cessation program, everyone stops it,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
In the book, I call it deceptive complacency. We convince ourselves, I don't
Oh,
need this
no better now.
anymore,
Yeah, I
right?
did
I'm
it
good.
once. I'm done.
And I do it all the time. And but once we realize we're back to feeling isolated, or reacting or imploding, the beauty of life storms finding your clear sky and the Aurora method is you have something to go back to. And it's there to guide you for your life. And that's what I wanted to leave as my legacy.
Oh, what a beautiful legacy, honestly. Beautiful legacy. And what they do too, and again, the reference for AA, the 12 step, the 12th one, it's like you keep it by giving it away, and that's, and it keeps it fresh and it keeps it, active in your mind. So if you're teaching it to someone else, it's you're
Mm-hmm.
actively aware and, in your own program, in your own, sheets.
Yeah. I mean, the thing I try and get people to recognize, at least for me personally, is accountability is so important. Even with I do little apps for things I'm working on. Like if I'm working on weight loss, I use apps to keep me accountable.
Yeah.
And so part of the Aurora Method Academy, for example, is for people to come in and meet and start to go through. When they go through the process together, they feel like they know each other,
Yeah.
and they can then be accountability buddies.
Right.
Yay.
Yeah.
Right. And they can keep it going for themselves. And if they have the inclination to help others, I would love that. I mean, I don't know where this is going to go, but if this,
Well,
if
I
people,
hope it takes right off. I hope this is a global, and this couldn't come at a better time too, like for the world, because seriously, we need to send this to the White House. Right?
I'm going to refrain.
Another story.
Yeah.
But seriously, it should be a global thing. It should be in the schools. It should be, the method. Maybe not all the story for some of the younger
Oh
kids.
no, they can't handle the stories, but the method is
But
important.
the method is amazing. Yeah. But I'm glad you included the story, because I feel like I got to know you, that you're coming from a place of this great despair, this great trauma, to overcome, to be successful, to be, and be successful before you're doing this. You know what I mean, too?
Mm-hmm,
And
mm-hmm.
you're really all together. And
Yeah, I mean, thank you, because I feel like my whole life has prepared me for this moment. Because the things that I've learned over the years, especially if I don't know how far you got into the book, but there was a point with my business, because of the Aurora method and the daily practices. I got to a point where the business outgrew my skills, right? And I didn't know, and I had deceived myself into thinking I was okay, the company was okay. But I had hired someone. My CFO had passed away. I trusted her implicitly. She guided me on every decision. We were super profitable, super successful. This guy comes in, he doesn't know what he's doing, right? But the way he did stuff was different than the way she did it. And when I would ask the question, he would tell me what I wanted to hear. But if I understood, and I tried to learn finance, I did. I just, for some reason, my mind I can't process it.
yeah.
So I couldn't see it. I couldn't see what the issue was. And so the books look normal to me, right? And then what we discovered was he drove us to near bankruptcy.
Yep.
He drove all our value away. And, and I had to go deep with that, right? Now, my old me would have been like, I'm a victim again. I'm this, I'm that, da, 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 da. No, I had to go deep and really, I went back to the method, and I realized I got deceptively complacent. I wasn't really practicing. I knew I didn't understand finance. When he was telling me things that I wanted to hear, my gut kept telling me, you should.
You always trust that
right?
gut.
I didn't trust my gut. I went back to self-avoidance because it makes me uncomfortable when I don't understand something.
Yep.
And it's not to say that I created this situation, but I had to get honest with myself and accountable with myself that the business outgrew me, and I had to let go of the reins. After building a business for over at that point 18 years, and I was at the helm, wow, I was like, I have to do this. And I knew I committed to myself that I had to do it. And so I just worked through it, and man, was it difficult. I had to let go of a lot of people. Everyone hated me, and I just had to endure it. Right. It was like, face everything and rise. And when I got through that and I got to the other side, I basically, handed over. It was difficult letting go, but ironically, what happened was COVID happened, and I would have not known how to navigate us through that. And the person I let go, not let go of, but handed the reins over to, he steered us beautifully through it. Because all of our contracts were canceled, right? And he just steered us through it up and out, and took us, because he knew how to exit, which is why I handed over to him. And and gosh, it was so incredible. But because I was willing to look at the business, and get honest with myself and say, the business outgrew me, and I could be emotionally accountable that not that I created this situation, but that I perpetuated that problem because something told me it wasn't right, but I didn't get help for it again. Right? Again, I created it. Well, not created it, but
In your mind, it is.
Right?
Yeah.
It's amazing.
It's the same cloud that came back.
Right. But it's amazing when you have that clarity, how you can make a decision to get to the other side. And ultimately, I sold, and and here I sit, I'm out of the business. Yay. And I'm living my purpose, because when I learned this and I saw what it could do for others, I just was like, I want to help. I definitely want to help people struggling with burnout and feeling disconnected, because people don't know how to find their way back,
Yeah, it destroys so many lives, so many businesses in so many lives.
It does. And so many people, especially entrepreneurs, will like, forget it, I give up, I'm going to shut down the business. And you're limiting your own potential when you don't look at your city of limitation. Because when you like mine, right? I mean, I got to do it all myself. I got to do this, I got to do that. No, I ultimately learned how to delegate and let go, to the point of letting go of the reins of the business, right? It took me, I should have done it probably 4 years before, but,
Right?
and that wouldn't have happened, and it would have been a better outcome, but whatever, but that's okay. I could now say, no, I'm not a victim. No, circumstances aren't this. It's, I didn't recognize it sooner, and if I would have, things could have been different, but they weren't. And it prepared me for where I am today. And that's how I'm able to look at that now. But I wouldn't have been able to do that before. This just helped me really crystallize what happens inside.
Yeah. Well, I say a lot of everything for a reason. Everything happened for a reason. What you lived through was brutal, but again, for a reason. You know what I mean? Because here you are, this strong, amazing woman that I get to, like the honor to talk to here, that you've pulled off something like this out of everything that you've gone through. I mean, you talk about a roller coaster. You've been on that roller coaster since birth.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, a lot of people will self-inflict these roller coasters, but this was, not you. You know what I mean? Like, not these things were happening to you. You didn't know how to deal with them at that, So I'm just so utterly utterly impressed and in awe of you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. And I hope people that watch and share this show have someone special in their life that this can help, because this would be a great book to give to someone that they, like
There's
say
so
you
many
have a
people
friend,
struggling. There are so many people struggling,
just
you know?
just read this. I think, this might be good for you without, getting the arguments coming your way, or what do you mean? Why am I doing something wrong? I have to do that, oh, just read this.
Well, I because I've mentored women, oftentimes this work will supplement their work in therapy, because it helps them have some clarity on certain things because it brings some stuff up. For others who have been through therapy, they just gain greater clarity of what they learned, and then they apply it different because they have different insight. And that's what's so wonderful about the Aurora method. It's just designed to be a practical guide to, so it is psychology informed because the work is really about recognizing where you're stunted, again, Maslow, but recognizing what that initial belief is that's been sitting in your unconscious mind driving you when you understand what you're refeeling. You know what I mean? So when I mentor and now I'm teaching, I say to them, oh, so what's the refeel? That's the first question. What's the refeel as a coach? And, and they're like, I don't know what I'm refeeling. Okay, well, I want you to reflect on that. What's the refeel? And right when they go to what the refeel is, it's like, oh my gosh, da 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 da. They go through their reaction cascade and they see, oh, I should have said that to my husband. You know what I mean? Like I didn't mean that, or whatever it is. So it's just amazing. That's all.
Go off of this rage, this,
Yep.
something that you fall back on. It's like it's protecting, like screaming to, like, you can't get me because I'm going to argue back at you. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
And it's like, no, you cannot.
Yeah, but I encourage anyone if they read the book or if they want to learn more, you can even schedule a free consult with me. I'm trying to just meet people to help them understand if this is right for them. There's some people it's not right for,
Who?
Well, no, it's true. I've met some people that they, there's been people that I've met where they're struggling with family, but they're not burned out. It's circumstances that are their families that really aren't theirs. So that's an example of like a Mel Robbins let them, right? And it's just really working through that. Other people have had some significant experiences, and I'm not a therapist. So, it means going to get the right appropriate professional help first, and then, hey, check this out later because it might give you some insight, but you got to be ready for it. You know what I mean? You have to be ready. So I like to say that it's so important that if you're not ready, it's okay, but if you're ready because you feel stuck because you've tried so many different things and you're like, when's this going to stop? When's this going to change? Then set up a meeting with me, because this is right for you. And, and if you want to talk through if it's right, then I'm here. And as I said, the course is for people who when they start reading what the work is, they want to get through it fast, but they keep putting all this burden, thinking it's bigger than what it is. And that's we all do that. So that's why I wasn't really planning on offering the course. I was encouraged to do it, because the person who helped me with the book said, people are going to want to learn from you. And I'm like, aren't I teaching them in the book? And, and it's like, well, I think you better be ready. So, so I'm ready to teach and I'm enjoying it.
It's wonderful. It really is. I was just going to say something. And it's just like totally lost. Yeah, it will come back. But, what's important is also because of, all your sheets and everything. And I'm just this anal too, you know what I mean? all these nice sheets and this one is got the tint in it. And then, I mean, I'm like this, like I love creating all the sheets and everything to do it. You know what I mean? It's like the prep, but it's also a procrastination. The prep, You know what I mean? It was like, so I can procrastinate by setting all these things up, actually doing the work. But this I'm so looking forward to doing. But like I know where my mind goes, But I know also that once you have all these things racing in your head, it loses all its power over you when it's on paper and it's looking at you, and that's the actually kind of what I'm going to write a book about. You know what I mean? So it's like, if it gets out of here and it's on here, it loses that power over you, period. It's not so daunting. Can you do all the things to fix that one thing at this one time? No. But can you do some of them? Yeah. So you do what you can, but it stops the racing in the mind, because it's just so easy to get there. It's so, in your little illustrations of your mind and everything, and your dog, the racing
storm. Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, this is everything,
Yeah, someone suggested that I create a head and let people map it out. And I was like, that's a great idea. Like just create a blank face, where like over here would be the refeel, and then what's the belief, and then the limiting, and then the fear, and then the issues. And I thought that was such a great idea. And I'm like, I think I'm working with
put it onto your teaching. Because mine's like like you're in the center in a circle, and all your issues are out here in other circles. And then whatever the things that you can do come off of this to solve that. And just because you're writing them doesn't mean you're doing them. You're just writing them, and you can just do what you can when you're looking at them. But now, well, what was I so crazy about? This really isn't that much. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
And you can have as many pages as you want of all these different issues, and you're doing the same, in a different way, but like the same thing. It's getting out of here, going down there. Hi, Keith. Mama D is working, so she can't be with us anymore. She changed jobs, so she's doing a different shift. So she's new at this job, so she can't tell them that she wants Thursdays off to be with us just yet.
What's she doing?
She's up in Canada, and she's like, when you call up and you want to bitch to someone about something, she's that nice voice on for Canada Post and stuff. It's like, I'm the one that's calling up bitching. But I miss her. I miss her a lot. She's a sweet, kind, loving, generous soul. You would have loved her. But hopefully she'll be back soon. Excuse me. So how are we doing on that? It's already we've been yapping for an hour and a half.
I know.
Unbelievable.
I know. It went by so quick.
It does. So tell me about the, like what will people expect if they want to come in and, join your course, or, after they watch your webinar, because you have a free webinar, what do they expect?
Yeah. So, well, the free webinar is just about understanding the reaction cascade and how it really drives us. So, and that's the precursor, because that's the setup for why you need the AURORA method. When you understand that, some people don't identify with it, other people do, and that's great. But the course itself, as I said, it's really for people. If you get the book and you're going through the work, this is the opportunity to do it in a group setting. And so what's the outcome? So what I usually will say to people is, at the end of that 12 weeks, you're going to have a lot of clarity. You're going to see patterns that you're like, what? That's like, so you get some aha breakthrough moments. But more importantly, you're going to have a framework for mending relationships where you feel at odds with certain people that like the story I was telling about John with his brother. All of a sudden you start looking at things a little differently, and you're like, oh my gosh, like, I want this guy back in my life, or I want this gal back in my life, whoever it is. And I want to fix this. I don't want this to keep going on like this. I want to shift it. So typically what I always will promise people is at least improvement in 1 to 2 relationships that they're struggling in, because they're going to know how to talk about it differently and not create a jade situation. And when they jade, we don't take the bait, right? Because we understand they're jading. So it's okay. We just acknowledge it, right? So, it's just all about learning how to talk differently and really communicate differently so that you can get to where you want to be. But the other thing you're going to walk away with, as I said before, is your own personalized mindfulness program. And this is personal to you, and it's your own practices. So like everyone does mindfulness different. Some people do yoga. I like to walk. I do. I walk for an hour, sometimes an hour and a half. It's my quiet time. And it's my commitment to myself, and I work through my things in that time. So that's basically what you'll get is you'll discover for you what works for you. And when do you do your practice, right? And then your practice doesn't have to be structured. I always recommend a 5-minute morning reset where you're setting intention and then checking in with yourself at the end of the day. How'd you do? Because when you're trying to change some of these traits, it's not about, okay, now I know what to do. It's actually just, think about it. Like, did LeBron James become like this major athlete and superstar, like, because he knew how to do it?
Yeah.
No, he practiced, right? And practice and practice and practice and practice. So this is all about practice. And as you practice, you slowly start to continue to see shifts and changes. And my favorite example of that shift and change is people were always afraid of me because I was so self-reliant. I had like this wall, and people would say to me, "You're so intimidating," and I would be like, "What?" Like I was so insecure and so self-centered. I'm like, "How could you say I'm intimidating?" So I started in my practice, started saying that I was releasing fear because I knew it had to be fear that was creating that, and that I was approachable and understanding and kind. And I'll never forget it. I was at work and this woman, I'm the CEO, and she comes in and she's like, I know you're the CEO, but you're so approachable. And I was like, yes, I manifested that, so happy, and so, and now people will say to me, oh my gosh, you're so kind and loving and understanding. And I'm like, oh my God, you have no idea. People were so afraid of me. But I continue to manifest that every day because I don't ever want to be seen like that ever again. So there's things like that. Like you get feedback from people, and in your own mind, you're like, what are they talking about? What are they seeing that I don't see? When you do the AURORA method, you start to realize those traits, I call them in the book, in the reaction cascade, the acts, right?
Yep.
They affect how people perceive us. And when you understand what I call the acts, then all of a sudden you're like, oh, right? And then you're like, now I see why I'm like magnets bouncing off of, like whatever that, like how the magnets like repel, they repel off each other. It's like, oh, I didn't know that, right? And now all of a sudden you're like, ooh, I can change that. So that's what they get. I mean, anyone who wants to change, like I always say, if you're ready, if you've tried things and you're still like frustrated that things aren't improving, it's just opening your mind and being ready to actually, accept a new approach. Like, are you ready to rethink a new way and take on? Are you ready to reset your mindset, right? Are you ready to restore connection? But, you have to go with, are you ready to rethink your approach? Because if it's not working, it doesn't mean it's wrong. It just means you're stuck. And that's the beauty of this, because it's just plain language. It's not imposter syndrome. We're not diagnosing each other. We're not psychologists, right? We just know that we're stuck, and like, how do we change that? And that's what it's about.
And all these alcoholics, you got to hit rock bottom. That's what it is. It's like, okay, everything else, I've done everything else under the sun. What is there left? God, what is wrong?
Right. And similarly for people with burnout, it's the same thing. You get to that same place of desperation because you so desperately want things to get better, and you think, if only they would change, right?
Yeah.
If only they would stop asking me, if only they. When you're saying that, I will say to you, I want you to think about that for a minute. That's your signal, right? That's your signal that it might not be a them problem. There's something going on here, right? So, and when we learn how to shift, it's amazing. Like, I can't say it enough, but when you learn how to shift, when you learn how to reshape what was shaped, and you're changing the scripts in your mind, the the ripple effect on the outside is incredible. And it's so amazing, and when you restore those things, you're just like, oh my gosh, I had no idea, I couldn't
I
see
know.
it,
And I
right?
wish I did this sooner and
Mhm.
all that kind of stuff you're gonna get. Yeah, all the
Yeah,
time from
that's what
everybody.
they'll get.
Yeah.
That's what they'll get.
Why yeah. Why did I waste so much time? Why did I think I was the answer? Why did I why? Well, you know what? Don't. Just don't. Just
No,
do.
there's no why. What I say to anyone that I work with is, I always say this: why is a letter in the alphabet, and keep it there, right?
Yeah.
This is about, what do I need to change, and how do I change? And when you get to what and how, you are empowered. I'm going to say that again. When you get to what and how, you are empowered. When you're staying in why, you're just staying stuck. You're driving around the city, right? You're just driving around the city of limitation.
Yeah.
So,
Yes. Yes. Life is definitely too short. It really is, you know. But it's just it's such a it's again, so I know you just got here, but we're talking about life storms, okay? This book is incredible. If you want to get to know yourself and you want to just change everything, but you have like so many forms and everything that you can print out and a whole site and a whole group of people that can
it's a
support.
toolbox. That's all it is. It's a toolbox.
Yeah, and it's everything. You don't need to buy anything else. It's just this. It's this is the whole package. She's the whole package. I mean, if you guys get this and you do this, you're gonna thank me. I'll take the thank yous. All right, they go to her, but I'll take the thank yous for introducing you. But you wouldn't be disappointed. Let me just say that. And hi, Erin. How are you?
Hi, Erin.
But if you guys are just coming in, you're going to have to back up. You're going to have to watch this show over again, because what this woman, Tracy, is doing is helping so many people. I wish I had known this seriously 30, I don't even know, 40 years ago, that I wish I didn't have to go through the things that I went through. I wish that this was out there then. So, yeah, it's wonderful. It's amazing. It's life-changing, and just do it. Even if you don't have any issues, if you're not suffering from burnout, you know what I mean? It's still life-changing, for a lot of things.
Well,
For arguing.
it helps you shift. It helps you shift perspective. Like I say, if you're struggling in relationships, that's a signal. That's a signal that you're stuck in that city of limitation, and it will help there too. But my sole purpose with this was really, when I look at how many people are struggling with burnout right now, and there's so many people that there's that sense of urgency because of social media and all the electronic communications, and when we grow up thinking we have to perform, right? So responsiveness means I care, and you don't even know where to focus anymore, and then you're going and you're going and you're going and you're so disconnected. That's burnout, right? And they're calling burnout so many different things, screen burnout, this burnout, that. To me, we just get emotionally depleted. We're bankrupt,
Yeah, it's enough. It's just enough. I'm
right?
done. When you're
Right. And,
done,
and it's
done.
really learning, and they'll say that, um, they'll basically say that, you have to set boundaries, but many people are afraid of boundaries because they think it's confrontational, but it's not. But when you understand your own beliefs and what sort of drives that fear, you all of a sudden realize like no is a complete sentence. You can say no, right? And
God,
just
why is that so hard to say?
right? Like you can just say
I'm
no. I never said no. I was angry because I never said no. I was
would
like,
kill
yes, yes,
myself to
yes, yes,
freaking do all these things for
right?
everybody.
And
Yeah,
and I'm a human doer, I'm doing, and I'm never saying no, and I'm angry at all of you because you're asking me, but I'm the one not saying no. Right?
right.
So, I was a people pleaser, right? I was
Yep,
a like I sacrificed myself, I people pleased, and all I kept doing was, when I realized that my people pleasing and that all that sacrifice and me having to be not having, but wanting to be an overachiever because I thought performance was going to give me worth and value and it was going to make me belong, right?
yep.
Then it
Nope.
was like, "Oh boy, like these are 3 major things that could have killed me and 3 major things that kept me away from people, and kept me apart from people." And, with so many people feeling isolated today, whether or not they use substances or not,
Yeah.
everyone's got their thing that they disengage with, right?
Yep.
So it's just really looking at yourself emotionally and seeing how you're checking out and how can you get back to presence? How can you get back to
Yeah.
connection with you, connection with others,
Yeah. Yeah. And being women in business, like I know it. I wore every hat in the business,
Mhm.
I kind of went through it with you already, but cheap cook and bottle washer, yes.
Right.
That's, I mean, that's exactly it. And the books and the taxes and the paperwork and going out and estimates and then trying to find everything and trying to find the best prices. And I was known to, give you $1 million look for, way, way low prices. I was
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
poo-pooed upon by all the regular designers. I wasn't in with them because I'm not selling you,
Yeah.
Baker furniture from the design center in Boston. Like, why am I going to sell you a $10,000 couch when I can sell you a $2,000 one or even $1,000 one or under $1,000 one that looks exactly the same? It might not be the absolute, that perfect quality, but it's, there.
Mhm.
So, I mean, I would fight to find that, you know what I mean, and be affordable to people. So it's like there wasn't a lot of pressure on me to do that, you know what I mean, and being, like, well, why are you doing this? It's like you're
Yeah.
giving us a bad name about it. But
Why do you do this? You're the
yeah,
one who wants like, my favorite story at work before I started my business was this was just before my breaking point. I'm sitting with the owner of the business. I'm sobbing hysterically. I can't handle anymore. I'm the fixer. I can't do anymore. And I'm like, I need help. I need help. I finally had the courage. I say, I need help. He's sitting at this big mahogany desk and he leans forward and he says, you are the one who goes to 110%. No one else does. And he said, when you can stop doing 110%, you will get the help that you need. And at the time I'm like, what is this guy?
yeah, I know. I'd be like,
And I'm like, I need help, right?
yeah,
And but his point was, unless you change, this will not change. Like, he was pretty much, the whole idea of if nothing changes, nothing changes. And
yeah,
and he sort of said it like that. And I was like, what?
yeah.
And of course I'm from New Jersey, so there's a finger we like, and I was like just really like I cannot even believe this guy, but I have to admit, like after I really broke and I went on this burnout recovery journey and I saw that it was my thinking that drove me, that if I gave 110% and I sacrificed myself, I thought I would belong. I thought I would, people would like me. It was crazy when I realized that. And I did reflect on that conversation and he was right. And
Mm,
he knew it. And he was about ready to retire. He had been in business. He ran his own business for years and years and years. And he pretty much, if I would have listened to him that day, I probably could have learned something. But again,
you
I
weren't ready to
was
answer
so
the
stuck and I wasn't ready.
mind is like,
Yeah, I wanted to say it was you not supporting me rather than
yeah,
me not
not,
accepting the appropriate help. And because I was again doing everything and having to, I felt like I had to do every aspect of it. And I didn't,
the insanity.
but that was my belief,
Yeah.
right? So that's the beliefs we have. And that's just one example. But when I looked at some of the other ones, like in relationships and, with family and, and things like that, it was just like, wow, I had no idea, no idea how my life experiences really shaped the way that I showed up. And when I realized that, I was like, oh no, like, no, I'm changing this. And because I knew what to do then, and so what and how. I knew what to do. I just needed to learn how. And then I started piecing together how, because it's easy to talk about how, oh, you shouldn't do this, you should do that.
Oh yeah.
No,
When someone says, just snap out of it, just don't
no,
do that.
you can't.
What?
You have to really practice how. And
That's,
when you practice how, as I said before, you are so empowered in every area of life, at work, at home, in your relationships. I mean, like with your husband or your wife, whatever. It's amazing. It's absolutely amazing.
yeah. And your relationship today is great, right? So,
Yeah, we've been together for 32 years,
uh,
and that's amazing. I mean, there was a point where there was a time where, I didn't know that that relationship was going to stay because, it was always like this. It was always me flipping out, in burnout. My go-to was always like, especially towards the breaking point. And then when I started the business, because I'd learned these great practices, right? Or like when like right after my breaking point for a good couple of years, I was like, oh, I'm all gung ho. And then I stopped, and then basically I stopped doing it and I lost my job and I had to, not that I had to, but I started a business. And then, business is going great. I'm doing great. I don't need these practices. Who wants to spend 5 minutes in the morning doing intention? I'm like, I have things, bigger things and more important things to do. And the reaction started to come back.
right.
When fear would trigger, when, again, wound goes to the initial belief, to the limiting belief would then trigger my fear. I would be reacting again. I was exploding again. And can you imagine being a CEO and like just flipping out over stuff? And someone comes in to ask a question. I'm just like, it was the last straw, and they'd be the recipient of the last straw. How inappropriate is that? And I would feel so much shame,
Right.
when I reacted like that. And then I was doing the same thing at home and I couldn't figure why, like, why aren't we close? Because I'm like freaking out all the time. Right. Right.
Why don't you love me? Why don't you love me?
Right.
Do
And
you
then,
love me? Yeah.
yeah, and then there's other people that I've worked with that they're not, that's why I always say there's two sides to burnout. There's the exploders and then there's the imploders.
Yeah.
And the imploders just go really deep and quiet. And yes, they react.
That could
Don't
be
get me wrong,
scary.
not
That
as
could
loud
be
as an
scary.
exploder,
Yeah.
but they take it, they swallow it, they swallow it, they swallow it, and it's affecting them in every way. And then ultimately they get snippy and snappy and they can't handle it either. And
And
either
then the
way,
person on the other side of that is like, what happened here? It just came in and said
exactly.
hello.
Yeah, to me, those are the quiet, the ones who mentally divorce people and quietly disengage and just don't ever call you, and or they just don't engage with you, and you're like, what did I do? You have no idea, and you can't break through that because they just surround themselves with this invisible wall, and that's what happens.
Yeah.
Either side of burnout, that like so, it takes us to the same place,
Yeah.
and for me, you know, that place is always a place of isolation and disconnection, and finding our way back is hard, and that's what the Aurora method helps us do.
And thank you for making it. I swear to God, people, honestly, all right, we got 10 minutes left, all right? 10 minutes. Listen, this book, I mean, the first half is her amazing story. She's overcome so much trauma, okay? But midsection, she gets into the heart of everything. She goes through step by step by step by step, easy processes, easy forms, gives you all the forms. The forms are in the back of the book. The forms are downloadable. The forms are printable. I have them already printed out. I'm going to be doing this. I have a new grand puppy. I'm going to go watch. And when I go watch the puppy for a week, that's when I'm going to be sitting down and doing this, because it's like I won't have all this exterior crap going on here that I have to, I'll be up there. I'll be in Massachusetts again, away from Pennsylvania and the
Yeah.
stress, everything here. And I can just focus, but it doesn't mean you have to go away and do this. I'm just saying that this is how I'm going to be doing this, just because every week I have to read another book and get ready for another show and do all these things. However, this is amazing, 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 amazing. You guys
The
know
process
me.
isn't long. It's not long.
Yeah, it's not daunting. It's simple. It's easy. You're gonna thank me. You're gonna thank me for introducing you to Tracy into this book. And I'm telling you.
Well, Gina, one of the quote I always check on Amazon and see if people review it. There was one person who reviewed it, and she said that she goes, "This was surprisingly deep," like, because she was saying how she read it, and then how she started doing the method, and how it's simple yet surprisingly deep. And then she said some stuff stopped her in her tracks, and she had to go back and reread it, but it helped her. And that to me is what the book is about.
Yeah,
It's just me giving you the
yeah,
guidance I wished I had had before I hit my breaking point in burnout.
yeah.
And so you
Yeah,
don't have to
I
take
had
it,
had it before mine.
yeah,
Yeah,
you don't have to take it to the nth degree. If you're an entrepreneur, if you're just anyone struggling, that's what this is here for. It's for you. It really is. And Gina, thank you for saying it, because I wrote this book with the idea that it was essentially a guide for people, and so that they can use it and refer back to it, and they don't need to spend any more money. But I always say, but because I was guided to do this, doing it alone sometimes can feel daunting,
yeah,
especially when you're burned out. You just want someone to tell you how to do it. And
yeah,
that's why I started offering the course,
yeah.
and so the course is, right now, I'm in a cohort right now. We're going to be putting up the next date. But I always recommend anyone who's struggling, I'm doing free one-on-ones. Just schedule a one-on-one, and make sure that this is right for you. Like, if that's something you want to do.
Yeah, I highly recommend it. I would totally, I mean, if you're struggling in anything, really, it doesn't mean you have to be addicted to anything. It doesn't mean you have to be burnt out. If you are just struggling in your relationship, in your job, in whatever, it's like, what is it? What is it that's wrong with me? What is it that's wrong with them? You know what I mean? It's like,
Yes.
this is your
Yeah.
solution. This is your
Yes,
answer.
and there are so many people that hi, Jean. There's so many people, though, like even at work, where they feel stuck, right? And that when I talk about the reaction cascade, I'll always say, like, how many times have you, like, sat in a meeting, let's say at work, and you're asked to present something, and one of your colleagues who you feel pretty close to abruptly interrupts and asks a question, and instantly you're like, "What? I don't know how to answer that," right? And you get all jacked up, right? So, and then you start thinking, I'm never going to get that promotion, right? And then the cascade starts, and then you're like, oh my gosh.
Yep.
And the thing is I've seen people, especially when I was sitting in the CEO seat, and after I left the business, it was so cute because so many people would call me and be like, can I bounce something off of you? And it was all, mentorship. But what happens is when we have that need to succeed, and especially I always go over here when I talk about the city of limitation. There's self-centered traits. One of them is self-seeking, which means I need validation and approval.
Mm.
I've seen so many people in the workplace who are self-seeking. They don't realize they're self-seeking. What it is they're trying to promote themselves, and they were told that promoting themselves makes good sense, but without discernment and discretion, and it holds them back. And there's been so many people that I've mentored that they can't see it, and when I show them the acts, what it looks like and how people perceive it, they can shift that. And that's just one example of why someone won't get a promotion. Having sat in the CEO seat, the number one reason people don't advance is because of conflict. So some of us are, like I said, seekers, and we're constantly looking for approval, or constantly promoting and trying to let everyone know what we do. Well,
Yeah.
management doesn't like that, right? Then you get to the other side of it, where you're sort of like important, right? And you're trying to let everyone know how smart you are and everything like that, and you don't recognize the conflict that creates. And both of those harm us in the workplace. And to me, recognizing the Aurora method lets you see those traits, especially if you're frustrated at work. it helps there too. So it's really designed to help in professional and personal relationships. So for anyone, as I said, who's struggling both personally and professionally, this is definitely your guide for bridging yourself back. And when I say bridging yourself back to yourself is one thing, right? You know yourself. But when you bridge back to shifting perspectives of how people are perceiving you in terms of work and stuff, you're bridging your way back in a way where all of a sudden you start shifting how you're handling it, and they notice it, right? And they want to see it consistently. And when they start seeing it consistently, all of a sudden they're like, wow, what happened to them? Right? What's going on with them? And that's really how this works in the professional setting. So that's why, with my experience, both with burnout and having been an entrepreneur and sitting in the seat that I've sat, I really am trying to help people bridge on both sides so that they can gain that fulfillment at home and at work.
Again, I
Uh,
give it to you. I give it to you. I really do. All right, we're coming down to the end here. Does anybody have a question that they would like to ask? If you have like a certain situation, like, well, I'm not suffering from that, or I'm not suffering from this, or do you have anything that you might want to
bring it, bring it, bring it.
throw at Tracy? Like we only have a few minutes left here to go, so feel free. She's just so you see her. She's so down to earth. She's lived quite the life. I really didn't want to get into any depth about the life part of it. But Jesus.
Well, I know someone said they were in a big Irish Catholic family of 11 kids. I don't know. I saw that pop up on the
Yeah,
screen.
yeah,
My mom was the oldest of 9. Yep,
yeah.
I'm
I had a big
I'm
attack.
Irish Catholic too. My mom was the oldest of 9, and because she was a teen, I was raised the youngest of 10. So, it was interesting.
Right? Yeah. So your aunts and uncles were like your siblings. So
Well, the younger ones, the ones that were closest in age to my mom, I call them aunt and uncle. The
yeah,
ones that were within, like, 10 years of me, I call them by their first name,
yeah.
even though they're my aunts and uncles.
Right. Right. Oh
Yeah,
my God.
they're like my siblings.
Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah, you just got to read it. You just got to read it. The story, I'm telling you again, the story part of her life could be a book, just a novel, a book, okay? Let alone where it led to, what the result was with her Aurora method. Um, Phenomenal. I mean, the Aurora method could be a book, just plain and simple by itself, period. All right, so it's 2 books in one, but I'm glad that she did it. I'm glad I read it. Hi.
Oh, hello, Foxy Gina.
I am so glad that I did get to that connection with you. It brought back a lot to me, and I'm sure it will bring back a lot to other people, because again, the thing is, you're not alone. The things that you go through, the things that trigger you, the things that, you feel like, oh, this only happens to me. Mm-mm,
Mm,
mm-mm, you know, and you'll mirror yourself in here, at some way, shape, or form. You'll mirror yourself. If you forgot it, like I'm a lot older, so I'm thinking way back, then it just seems like so bloody long ago now, and it's just something. It's something to experience, something that it will absolutely change your life for the better, and everyone in it.
yep. So Chris just asked a question.
Yeah,
Yes, what it does, Chris, is it helps you see, when I was in a super demanding job in the pharmaceutical industry, there's like a beginning, a beginning, a beginning, a beginning, and then an end. So there's no middle. And when you're never technically off, being able to say no is really difficult because of the fear of losing one's job, right? And so the idea here is, if you're in that high demanding job, it's really learning how to find some time for yourself. And how do you do that? You have to first see how this stuff is driving you, And so that you can shift your voice a little bit, right? Because the thing is not only do you find your way back to yourself, you're finding your way back to your voice. And, and setting limits and setting boundaries is scary because we think we're going to lose business. We think we're going to lose our jobs. We think whatever it is that we think we're going to lose. But having that conversation to be able to switch off is becoming more and more and more needed now. It doesn't mean you're just outright saying, no, I'm not doing that and getting angry. It's just really about building in that time. And that's what the Aurora method is going to do is illuminate for you some of your own patterns and how you, let's say, don't say no. It's going to really show you what you're doing. And as you see yourself, then you're like, okay, what do I do to, how do I do this different? And it's about, as you'll see in the book, it's about like first manifesting that change for yourself so you can center yourself with it. And then the next part of it is how to have that conversation in a way that's non-threatening, because we're so terrified of confrontation, right? And we don't want to rock the boat. We don't want to lose anything. So we just keep saying yes. And so it's really designed to help you find your voice so that you can, it's not necessarily no, but saying not yet, right? So there's, various strategies that you can apply for yourself.
Yeah, there's a lot of things.
Right. And if it's hard for you, that's where,
oh, yay.
Thanks. But if it's hard for you, that's why I'm offering the course, because, it starts off where I'm group coaching folks on how to do the method, right? And then as you have questions about it, I'm coaching in that capacity. And then if you need support down the line, I'm here as a coach. But right now I'm working in the group capacity because I really want to reach people. And if you need individual support, you let me know. That's how I structure it. I don't want people to feel, and I say this from my own personal experience, I've sought help from coaches, and what I see sometimes is they're always trying to sell you something. I don't ever want anyone to feel that way. I'm here to help, and I'm offering support where I can.
Let's stay connected. Our very end, okay? Let's stay connected. She is saying this throughout this entire book. She is not leaving you in the lurch, not one step of the way here. She even tells you, I'm reading and reading and reading. Okay, well, let's take a break now. And I'm like reading and reading and reading. I'm like, okay, I got to take a break. I needed to take a break at that point anyway. And I was like, hey, and I said, I'm going to take a break now. I was reading and Bob was sitting there and I said, no, the book told me to take a break. And he's like, get out of here. And I'm like, no, I opened up the page and I said, look, right here. It says it. Let's take
like little icons. Stop.
I know. I'm like, this is great. It is just great. It is one of the best things I've
Oh, thank you. There was another woman. She's written a book, Why Am I So Happy? And I'm gonna meet her for dinner. I mean, she was just like, oh my God, Tracy. It was like listening to, essentially just like someone sitting across my kitchen table talking to me, and I was like, yay, that's what I wanted. I just want to be a guide. So
well, you did it. You got it. All right, we are out of time, people. So, all right, I'm gonna have to say thank you so much.
Just thank you.
In here, thank you for writing such an incredible book. It's been a long time coming. It's finally here. I've been waiting for this book for 40 plus years. Okay, I've been waiting for this book, and now it's here. This is the one that you want. Okay, so I gotta find my exit video here, people. Okay, here we go. All right, so I just want to say again, I'll see y'all next week. But Tracy, I'd love to have you back on again sometime. So hang on for a minute. I'm gonna say buona notte to everybody else, and definitely you're gonna thank me. Bye. Thank you so much for joining us for another episode of The Fox Den with Gina B and Mama D. We are here every Thursday evening from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, bringing you a variety of guests or our own intuitive oracle card reading shows. We are streaming live on Facebook on my personal page and our YouTube channel, The Fox Den with Gina B and Mama D, on Mama D's YouTube channel, Angel Meadows, as well as our audio-only venues. We hope you enjoyed our show and our guest or your reading, and we would love it if you would go to our YouTube channel, The Fox Den with Gina B and Mama D, subscribe, share, and definitely hit that notification button to never miss a show. We'll see you all next week, and subscribers, watch for our pop-up shows as well.